The meeting of the Penfield Board of Education will be called back to order at 6:35. Please rise, and the clerk will lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a motion and a second that the board approve the August 10th, 2021 agenda as submitted?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. May I have a motion and a second that the board approve the consent agenda, including the approval of the minutes of the July 13th and July 28th, 2021 meetings as submitted, the acceptance of the recommendation from the Committee of Special Education, the acceptance of the recommendation of the Committee of Preschool Special Education, the acceptance of the recommendation from the Superintendent for personnel changes, budget transfers June 1st through 2021 through June 30th, 2021, the approval of the East Rochester UFSD application for participation in varsity swimming with Penfield as an incomplete team, and the approval of the request to dispose of unserviceable textbooks. So may I have a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, motion carries. It is recommended that the board approve the treasurer's report, including the cash report, general fund cash report, general fund revenue status report, general fund budget status report, school lunch fund cash report, and school lunch fund revenue and expense budget report for the month ending June 30th, 2021. So may I have a motion and a second?
So moved. Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. We have no special reports, which leads us right into the superintendent's report. Dr. Putnam?
Thank you, Mr. Elledge. There we go. So thank you. So this evening I just have some student and staff honors, I have some updates, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Driffel for business updates. And first, very excited to welcome two new principals to the Penfield High School family, or Penfield Central School District family. Mrs. Kelly McNair is principal of Cobbles Elementary School. She'll be officially starting later this month. And Mrs. Leanna Watt, principal of Penfield High School. She'll officially start Monday, the 16th. And so thank you. This process, as you remember, for Cobbles, we went back out a second time, which is not unusual because we did the same thing when we hired our last principal at Cobbles, Dr. Kenny, apologize. And I already forgot your name, and you've only been at district office for a week. So, and then we're just very excited to bring them in and continue the great traditions of both Cobbles, the high school, and Penfield Central Schools. And our bus safety program was held the first week of August 3rd and 4th. And the program teaches our incoming kindergartners about the 5 most important school bus safety rules and introduces them to the cafeteria experience. The cafeteria experience is going to be a little bit different for our kindergartners. You'll hear later with Dr. Driffel's presentation, but the federal government has extended the waiver, and therefore meals will be free again for all Penfield students. So we usually do about 10 minutes on how to pay for meals, and we didn't have to do that this year in this event. But you can see just a real kudos to our transportation department, who just goes above and beyond, wearing masks, supporting kids, following the rules, and really doing a great job for our little guys and girls to have a great experience. And so thank you to our transportation department. And for some updates, I'm really going to focus around reopening, which obviously is a very important topic. So some of these slides I did present already in our reopening event, and they're up online, but because this is broadcast and goes to the greater community, I want to make sure that I'm consistent with our message. And so this district has been and continues to be fully committed to reopening K-12. That's all students every day, in person, 5 days a week. And this is the caveat here, is for the entire school year. And so when we take a look at these plans, our focus is getting kids back 5 days a week for the entire school year. And that means being conservative, being safe, and really making sure that we can remain open even if cases increase with COVID. And so we want to do that in a safe and secure manner. So Penfield is fully committed to full-time in-person return. In order to remain open safely for students, we're basing our reopening plans on the CDC guidance. The district will monitor and review these reopening plans regularly, with potential updates happening every 10 weeks. Obviously, we'll update more often, but in terms of changes, we're really looking at the each quarter, every 10 weeks, looking at a change. If New York State, which is a governing body, makes a change that is required, obviously we'll have to put that into place outside of our time frame of a 10-week review. So the main pieces of our reopening plan is universal masking while indoors for all students and staff, regardless of vaccination status, right from the CDC guidance. Mask breaks are going to be incorporated throughout the day. Masking will be optional whenever outside for staff and students. Physical distancing, we're focused on 3 feet of physical distancing between students in classrooms. Cafeteria will be set up to allow for 6 feet of physical distancing when students have to have their masks removed. And so the 6 feet of distancing will also be used in classes where masks need to be removed. For example, band, where you need to remove your mask to play your instrument, and potentially some chorus and chorale, although we have learned last year that we can sing and sound amazing while wearing masks. And so that we'll continue to look at that 6-foot distancing. Sanitizing. Staff will provide hand washing reminders as well as explicit hand washing for our youngest learners. It actually has always been built in about hand washing lessons as our K1 and 2 health lessons, but we'll make sure they happen right when we get back to school. And then reminders around hand washing as well as hand sanitizing when you can't wash your hands. As we know, as we get older, there's not sinks in the classrooms. Our elementary schools many times have sinks right in the classroom. Others, as you get older, we do not have sinks in the classroom. But hand sanitizing will be encouraged, as well as hand washing. Sanitization of rooms, buses, high traffic areas will be done regularly. And then ventilation, we're sort of tied to the systems we have, so it's not as easy as grabbing a different filter and throwing it in our system. So what we will be doing is continuing to circulate air at the highest level of our operating system, windows open whenever possible. And then we are looking at utilizing federal funds for air purification options, including like standalone HEPA filters in classrooms and spaces. With some of those federal funds, we need to make sure that we're getting feedback from our community and all stakeholders. And so, as this community knows, a survey went out to all parents in terms of gathering information. We got well over 1,000 responses, and Dr. Driffel is going to talk a little bit more about that in the business update. School transportation, universal masking will be required for students and drivers and any aides and assistants on those buses. Bus windows will remain open to increase airflow whenever possible. This was done. There were some districts last year that did, they used the Department of Transportation guidance as opposed to the school reopening guidance. And so outside of our county, there were some schools that had full buses, and they utilized masking, and they utilized the windows being open to keep that airflow. And then physical distancing will be encouraged whenever possible. We're going to be encouraging family members to sit together, and a number of other things to make sure that we can get our kiddos to school as safe as possible. Obviously, parents can drive. We're encouraging parents that just remember that for everybody that drives, that pickup and drop-off line gets longer and longer, and so please be patient if you are driving your children. But last year we encouraged people to drive. This year we're not encouraging it. We feel that we can follow the guidance and follow the recommendations from our local Department of Health and the CDC about getting kids to school on our buses. Social emotional learning, which has always been a focus from this district and our focus on the whole student. But we also realize that each student in our district and every family was impacted by the COVID pandemic and is being impacted by the COVID pandemic differently. Some are ready to roll, and some are going to need some extra support when they enter school. And so our school leaders, our counselors, social workers, school psychologists, teachers, staff will be focused as we return. Staff will come back full-time August 30th, and we'll have a couple of days with us to prepare for the beginning of the school year. And our focus is going to be a supportive return for all students and staff when they begin. We did hire, based on conversations with the current budget, a K-12 social worker. So we have social workers, either part-time or full-time in all of our buildings, and we added an additional social worker to focus K-12 really on student need and building community and supporting families and supporting students. We are right now, just being honest and transparent, or potentially creating another K-12 social worker position, and we're just at that point where we're looking at, would that help and how could that work to really be the liaison between families in the school, especially around many of our virtual students returning to school, and for students who, even our high school, have never been, it's been a long time since they've been back full-time 5 days a week in person. And so I would just say to all families or students, if you have a specific concern about your child, please do not hesitate. Reach out to their administrator or their counselor to have a conversation and see what we can do to support your child and unique needs coming into school starting in September. Returning to normal, obviously that's in quotation marks because I don't think I ever know what normal is, but we're committed to safety and returning to what we consider traditional school, as much as possible. It's not going to be like 2019, but can it start to get back, especially for our children, to feel more like school? Last year, obviously, in a hybrid system, did not feel like a school for all kids. And so what are the things that we can do around social emotional learning, around trying to help students see that we're slowly returning back? And so we are going to be allowing for parent volunteers, and that typically is our K-5 classroom helpers coming in. Obviously, all of the universal masking, distancing whenever possible is going to be required, and we're also going to take a pause as we enter into September to make sure that we can have a clear process and protocol for that. We are looking to offer, if possible, shorter field trips, when possible, when safe. Again, universal masking and distancing. Allowing in-person extracurricular activities and clubs. I just kudos to our teachers last year who really went above and beyond to do a lot of virtual clubs, a lot of virtual activities. But as we come back into school, having students stay after to attend a club that they connect with and, again, build that positive culture within our schools and interpersonal skills. So we're going to be looking about bringing those back this year. And allowing in-person open house and back-to-school events. Obviously, for parents, those are optional events, universal masking, distancing, but again, giving students opportunities to get into the building before school starts. K-5, we're going to be doing our traditional supply drop-off, where students can come in the day before school to take a look at the building, see their classroom, drop off their supplies, and at least start to feel comfortable coming back. We have had virtual families, especially our virtual kindergarteners last year, who did not have a traditional school year for kindergarten. Our building principals at K-5 are aware, if anybody is interested who was virtual last year, to reach out, have a conversation, see what we can do to support if they're coming back in person in first grade. Just again, work with all of our families and our students so they are comfortable coming back in. As a parent, sometimes I think I'm more anxious than my children have been, but as parents, we matter too. So if you're having any of those anxieties about a return to school, whatever it might be, please reach out to the building principal, school counselor, just to have a conversation on what we can do to support your children coming back. In terms of review, we're going to continue to review and adjust our reopening protocols as the school year progresses. What I really want to be, I'm be honest, I really want to be able to say, guys, everybody, on November 1st, everything's going to be okay. And we know we can't do that. So masking is very interesting. There are some people who are very happy that we're universal masking, and there are some people who are very upset that we're universal masking. At the end of the day, we've got to look at all kids. We're a public school. How do we support all families? And right now, universal masking is recommended by a number of organizations, including the American Association of Pediatricians, the CDC. We can agree and disagree with different organizations. At the end of the day, the masking helps get us back full time for the entire school year. I want to be really specific about that. And meeting with the Department of Health locally, they do have the ability, if there is a cluster, to come in and recommend a school or a class has to quarantine. However, the close contact is still considered no mask, 15 minutes, less than 6 feet. So if we're in class, universal masking at 3 feet, and everybody has their mask on, then we are more likely not to have increased quarantines because of close contact, having to go home and isolate for 10 days. So what we're doing is doing everything we can to make sure that we stay open from now until the end of the school year. Universal masking, distancing, sanitizing. We're not going to do daily health checks like we did last year because it was mandated we had to. Instead, we're going to do, we don't have to, but we're going to ask for an attestation where we're going to send home just that reminder that if your child or for my staff, if they're not feeling good, if they have any of those symptoms, to stay home. Because that's honestly one of the safest things we can do is if people are ill, to stay home. That's also true if you have the traditional flu or a common cold or anything else. But in the meantime, the masks are critically important, which is why we're doing that. I realize and acknowledge that we know as a board, as a district, we're not going to please everybody, but at the end of the day, our goal is solid. We want kids back in school for the entire school year, and this is going to help us do that. So we're going to monitor, we're going to watch. Right now, if you look at our COVID numbers in Monroe County, we are very quickly going to be in the CDC red zone. We do believe that will come down in working with the Department of Health, and then we do believe that when we get back down to that blue, that low risk, that's where conversations can happen about does something look different. But I can't give anybody a solid date when there's going to be a change to our current protocols, because as we all know, the pandemic is real. There's a COVID thing happening, and we've got to monitor and look at data and facts. So that's where we are right now to, again, remember to be open full time. That is our goal. We don't want to go into hybrid. We want to be able to have kids back every day because we know that is truly what's supporting our students in learning, not just the skills academically, but also those soft skills of attending school with people who support them and care about them. So please keep that in mind, and updates and information are going to be available on our district website, and I will email out. We're looking at weekly emails as we get ready for school, just so that parents are aware of what things are in place. So I have a pause here for the board if there are questions, and I just have a couple other slides for my updates.
All right, board members, Catherine?
You mentioned right here about the allowing for parent volunteers when possible, same with field trips. Okay, are you referring to that being the goal right now? You don't have what's being set up as to what makes it possible, correct?
Right, so for field trips, for example, we actually have planned, and we're hopeful, the Washington, D.C. trip for 8th graders. Mm-hmm. There is a plan in place. We haven't done that for 2 years because of COVID, and we have a plan in place. Now, we have time to cancel, and we might have to, yeah. But we wanted to say this is in May, so let's hold on to that. Let's not say no yet. For some of our local field trips, if things are open, and I think local, you think about going to the one-room schoolhouse here in Penfield, and that's such a great opportunity for kids, and it's something that kids remember and think about. So that's something that we're kind of looking at, but we've got to wait and monitor and see if things are open, if they're going to allow for field trips, how can we do that in a smaller setting? And so it's one of our goals as we get staff back to at least keep that door open. Mm-hmm. Last year we were pretty clear that there were going to be no field trips. This year we're saying, let's see how it goes, and if we can make sure that it's safe and follows guidance, then let's not say no just yet. Let's see what we can do.
So that's with field trips. What about parent volunteers?
So parent volunteers is definitely a cultural norm in Penfield, and parents have, at the elementary school, many times there's a room parent. They come in to help out the teacher, and so we don't want to say no yet. We want to just make sure that we have some protocols in place on how that looks, mm-hmm. and make sure that distancing can be there. We really are looking at the month of September to be our start with all students. So in the past, 2019, we'd have parent volunteers in the second day of school. We'd like to take the month and see how is everything working? Is distancing working? Is universal masking working? How are our students doing? And then, by the end of September, be reaching out at our K-5 level on what that process is. We work really closely with our PTAs, our elementary principals work closely with the PTAs, and how we get that information out about room parents and volunteers. But to be fair, the masking, all of those pieces would still be in place even if you come in as a volunteer.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Board members, any other questions? So, Tom, can you just take a moment to recap the process of getting the stakeholder input for the reopening?
Sure. So for the reopening feedback, we did have, if you recall, back in late winter, early spring, we created reopening advisory committees that met. And then, listen there, we worked through really those committees to gather information. At the end of the day, last Thursday was where we shared out our plan based on lots of conversations with the Department of Health, other districts. I think we know because we've all been saying it, the frustration of waiting for state guidance. And although there's not executive, and maybe not a governor yet, so, so there's some changes there. We didn't get guidance. We did hear today, just so you know, that SED guidance is coming. And so they are a governing body. We'll see what that guidance looks like. Everything points to, just like the New York State Department of Health didn't say you have to do this, but they highly recommend following the CDC. So does the New York State Education Department. So does our county Department of Health. Is whatever you can do to utilize the CDC guidance the best you can. And then in terms of that parent input and stakeholder input, it was around our advisory committees and what they shared and what things could look like.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So I have a couple beyond reopening. Just a couple short updates around equity and access, an update reminder. And really it's a reminder. So last meeting there was a presentation by Dr. Maloney and Mrs. Potter around our work around equity and access. And so just a reminder that there are upcoming community conversations focused on equity and access. And the first one's coming up. It's August 16th. It is a virtual meeting, but an opportunity. I think an email went out from the district to families, and please keep an eye out. And then please mark your calendar, because there'll be another one November 15th and another one March 14th. And if you have questions, you can always email around curriculum, Dr. Maloney and Mrs. Potter. They've been wonderful at responding and meeting with people. And we just want to remember that we're keeping our doors open. We're here to listen, but we're also here to focus around the New York State framework for culturally responsive education. And we know there's some questions, and so we're going to keep working with our community to make sure we're listening and make sure we're explaining and take it a day at a time. But I just want to say thank you to Leslie and Tasha for all your work around that. And are there any questions on that? Otherwise, that's my last slide.
Okay. Board members, any questions?
All right, so I'll turn it over to Dr. Driffel for some business updates.
Thank you, Dr. Putnam. So board, good evening guests. A couple items to review tonight, some just for information, some for your approval. We'll review the year end of the fiscal year 2021. We'll approve the 21-22 tax levy. We'll review the food service program budget and then provide federal stimulus updates. So the first order of business in practice for Penfield Central is every August to review the year ending June 30th. There is no additional action required from the June authorization from the June 8th meeting. I won't go through all this. You probably can't see all of it if you're here. But the top line numbers for the fiscal performance for the year, we had anticipated revenue of $103.9 million and anticipated expenditures of $102.9 million. So we were able to generate about a $1 million operating surplus over the course of the 2021 year. All of these numbers are currently tentative, subject to change, subject to the financial audit process. Our external auditors are actually here in district this week. Practice is once they finalize the audit goes to the audit committee for review with the auditors and then comes back to the full board, typically at one of the October meetings. So all in all, it was a successful financial year with all the uncertainties we faced around state aid and all of the PPE and the one-to-one deployment. It was a fiscally sound financial year. Next up is the tax warrant process. So back in the spring in our budget development process, we communicated in our budget materials to the community and to the board that we were going to maintain the same levy as the prior year. Tonight we fulfilled that commitment to the community with a 0% levy increase. We're the only district in the county that was able to provide that for the community given the extra state aid that was allocated to us back in April. All the final town equalization rates for our 6 towns were the same as the spring projections, so there was no surprises with that. So the process is for the board to adopt the warrant and establish the town tax rates, which we'll review in a moment. And then, as is per normal process, the collection period runs from September 1st to the end of October, at which time the board will be furnished with a collection report letting you know how the process went. So here are the town tax rates for this fall's tax process. It shows all 6 of our towns. The first column is last year's tax rate per $1,000 of assessed value, and the second column is what the rate is for next year. And then the next 2 columns are the cash difference and the percentage difference year over year, and then back a comparison of what we forecasted the rates to be back at our meeting in April. So if we look at Penfield, last year's tax rate was $27.30. For this year, it'll be $26.97, a 33-cent decrease, or 1.21%. We had forecasted that to be 0.8% decline. The 4 Monroe County towns all had favorable variance relative to our forecasts at about that 0.4%, and the 2 Wayne County towns that are part of Penfield Central were pretty close. The only town that had a reassessment this year on their values was Walworth. That's why their tax rate went down so much. As those assessments go up, the tax rate comes down. All of the other towns did not reassess this year. So when we're in a broad 6-town locality across 2 different counties, one of the numbers we take a good look at is the true value tax rate. So that represents the entire taxable value of the entire school district, ignoring all the equalization rate differences. So we had projected the true value tax rate to decrease 3.03%, and it actually decreased 3.41%. So any questions, board, relative to the warrant or the tax rates for this year before we move on to food service?
Board members, any questions? Nope.
Okay. So, as is also custom in our August meeting, we take a look at the prior year food service program performance. So the program did incur an operating deficit this year, but that was actually what we had budgeted last summer. We had $1.2 million in costs relative to $930,000 in revenues. The total volume of lunches was 180,000. If we go back to the last full year of 5 kids in school per week, the 2018-19 year, we had 290,000 meals that year. So significantly less than where we were. This year, obviously, we're very hopeful, and we'll review the budget in a moment, that things will get back a little bit more to normal in terms of our food service program budget. And as Dr. Putnam mentioned, we have some good news around the meal charging program. I should note for the board that our 3-year audit and review was recently completed this past spring, and there were no material weaknesses or deficiencies identified. So no-cost meals for 21-22 has been extended by the USDA through June 30th of 2022. All of our Penfield learners are eligible for free breakfast and lunch. I should note that a la carte sales are not included in that waiver. It's just the standard meal for the day. So if you do want to continue to put money on your child's card for snacks or different ice cream, pizza kind of things, you're welcome to do that. And we also do ask that you please continue to complete and submit the free and reduced price applications. I know it might seem like an unnecessary redundancy to complete the free and reduced application when the meals are already free for the year, but that is a metric that is used by the state for resource allocation. It also provides the family some other benefits around reduced price for AP exams, SATs. Some colleges have reduced application fees, and I think there's also some energy fee reductions and internet service reductions. Board, we are still going to set the meal prices tonight, even though there is no meal charging for this year. There's no changes to what we set from last summer. Just in case the USDA waiver is somehow amended and goes away mid-year, we'll have formalized meal charges. So here's the cafeteria fund budget for 21-22. It's a little under $1.7 million on both sides of the ledger. So if we had $1.2 million in costs this year, we're expecting to get back to a little bit of normalcy. We've hovered around 1.7, 1.8 for the last 5 or so years. You can see clearly that labor and food make up the vast majority of our costs in the program, and then obviously the revenues mostly come from lunch. We are hopeful that some of the other sales will pick back up this year. Those a la carte sales, those vending machines, those snacks, and some of the district catering program as well. So any questions regarding the food service operation for last year or for this upcoming year?
Board members? Nope.
Okay. And then finally, a federal stimulus update. So we are still awaiting approval for 2 of the federal stimuluses. The one that was passed back in December of 2020, SRSA, and then the American Rescue Plan that was passed in March of 2021 this year. We put out a community survey as a requirement, part of the American Rescue Plan, what we should do with those dollars. It's not a carte blanche program. There are some requirements within, but we did get an amazing response, nearly 1,200 people. Thank you very much. That plan is due to the state by the end of the month. I anticipate we'll have a plan out to the community and submitted much sooner than that. As Dr. Putnam mentioned, we're really looking at air quality measures, academic supports, some professional learning opportunities for our staff, and social emotional supports for our kiddos. As a reminder, these funds are multi-year authorizations. SRSA expires in 23. The American Rescue Plan expires in 2024. They are not to subsidize the general fund, so you can't just apply it to normal ongoing operational costs, and they should be considered one-time investments. As I mentioned, we did have 1,200 responses, so I've gone through and read most of them, put together this quick word cloud of all the responses that we received. Some really thoughtful, creative, innovative suggestions, and you can kind of see right away that some of the things that popped out were students, school, learning, and kids. So obviously everybody's heart, I think, was well-intentioned in their feedback, so once again, we really appreciate it, and we'll have some more information coming out soon about those dollars being made available. So with that, any clarification, comments, or questions?
Board members? Nope, I think we're all set.
That concludes superintendent reports.
Okay, we're at 5A, change orders. It is recommended that the board approve the change orders that you have presented to you. May I have a motion and a second that the change orders be I'm sorry, let me finish reading this. The above change orders have been reviewed by and are supported by architect Vic Tomaselli, project manager Gary Huffman, clerk of the works George English, and the assistant superintendent for business and finance Dr. Dan Driffel. So may I have a motion and a second that the change orders as described above be approved.
So moved. Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Lunch fund budget. It is recommended that the recommended lunch fund budget is $1,690,000 for the 2021-2022 school year. May I have a motion and a second that the lunch fund budget for the 2021-22 school year be approved as recommended?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. L- 2021-22 school lunch prices. It is recommended that the board approve the prices of the school meals as recommended for the 2021-2022 school year. Those prices you just saw, Dr. Driffel just presented those prices. So may I have a motion and a second that the approval for these, for the prices of the school meals be recommended for the 2021-22 school year?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Establishing the 2021-2022 tax rates and fund balance review. The 2021-22 budget adopted by the Board of Education and approved by the Penfield Central School District community indicated that $459,437 of projected fund balance would be used to reduce taxes and include a tax levy of $66,895,998. The district anticipates receiving $12,932 in re-levies of the prior year's disallowment exemptions. Pursuant to the guidance from the New York State Comptroller and the Monroe County Treasury, this amount should be reduced from the necessary levy. This resolution also retains a 4% unassigned fund balance as allowed by law. Our current analysis indicates that the following pre-audit summary of financial conditions, financial operations for the fiscal year end June 30th, 2021. This represents no additional balance available from the board's prior year end authorization approved in the meeting on June 8th, 2021. As the books are closed and the final audit is completed, the Audit Committee and Board of Education will receive a final verification of year-end financial standing. The tax rates have been calculated based on that $66,883,056 levy with a planned $459,437 assigned to reduce taxes. The 2021-22 tax rates have been calculated as follows, and again, Dr. Driffel presented that to us this evening. So I may have a motion and a second that the above described transfers and adjustments be approved and that the school tax rates for the 2021-22 school year be set based upon real property tax levy of $66,883,056.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Contract with Villa of Hope. The district is contracting with Villa of Hope to provide mental health and substance abuse disorder services for the students and families based on service requests from Penfield Central School District from September 1st, 2021 through August 31st, 2022. The district will pay Villa of Hope a fee based on usage. The rate schedule is included in the contract and is not anticipated to exceed $24,000. So may I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education authorizes the Superintendent of Schools to enter into a contract with Villa of Hope?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. The Committee and Subcommittee on Special Education Appointments. Be resolved that the revised list of individuals be appointed to the District Committee on Special Education, the District Preschool Committee on Special Education, and the subcommittees for special education at Penfield High School, Bay Trail, Cobbles, Harris Hill, Indian Landing, and Scribner Road in accordance with Commissioners' Regulations Part 200.3 for the 2021-22 school year. May I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Standard workday for employees. Be it resolved that the Penfield Central School District hereby establishes a revised standard workday for employees where the length of the workday is not established as part of a collective bargaining agreement. So may I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the professional learning plan. It is recommended that the board approve the professional learning plan as presented on July 13th, 2021. So may I have a motion and a second that the professional learning plan be approved as presented on July 13th, 2021 for the 2021-22 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Visitor speaking time. We as a board appreciate the comments of the community during the public session of the board meeting. Every individual that speaks has a vested interest in the education of our students. Your comments are important to us. Matters involving particular individuals or specifics of negotiation are not permitted during public session. Concerns raised will be referred to the district administration for follow-up or action when appropriate. Visitors may sign up to speak at the meeting by emailing the district clerk, Sharon Erkvitz, at serkvitz@penfield.edu with their name, address, and phone number and topic they wish to address. Registration will be open at 8 a.m. on Friday before the meeting and remain open until 3 p.m. on Tuesday of the board meeting. Speakers are expected to identify themselves with their name and address before presenting and limit their comments to 3 minutes or less. A total of 30 minutes will be allotted for visitor speaking time. The board will not be responding to comments during this session, but please be assured we are listening. And finally, we ask that all speakers model the conduct we expect from our students in school daily. Please be respectful of others in your words, conduct, and demeanor. Thank you. So our first speaker is Nathan Nizinski. Hello, Mr. Nizinski, please state your name and address.
Nathan Nizinski, 29 Hilltop Drive, Penfield, New York. Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to address the board. I am a current student at Penfield High School going to my senior year. I'm here tonight for 2 reasons. The first is to ask why there is such a lack of diversity in our teachers and staff. In my 12 years in the Penfield schools, I've had only 2 teachers of color, Coach Coleman for middle school gym and freshman basketball, and Mr. Doy for 8th grade guitar. Let me repeat that. In 12 years of education, I've had only 2 teachers of color out of the 80+ teachers I've had in my academic career in the Penfield High School District. In this time, there's never been a person of color in a leadership role. No principals, no assistant principals, and no superintendents. What teachers give us as students goes beyond the facts they teach. The best teachers connect with us on different levels, and they serve as role models. It is not just my friends and classmates of color who benefit from having BIPOC individuals in leadership roles. I want to learn from a diverse set of people so I can go into the world understanding more than one point of view. The more diversity in the classroom, the better I will be able to function in the wider world, which is not majority white. The second reason I'm here tonight is to address the topic of how racism and history are taught in school. I can tell you without hesitation that we want to learn the truth about the history of our country. We are not fragile, we are not afraid, and we do not hate ourselves for being white. Anyone who tells you differently does not speak for the student body. They speak for their own fears. We watch the news, even if it's not in the traditional ways that our parents' generation does. In fact, we have access to more points of views than any generation ever before. That makes it all the more important that our school curriculum reflects all the facts about America, both the good and the bad. This will not weaken us. It will only increase our knowledge, allowing us to make more informed decisions as we move into our adult lives. Penfield students want to be educated in an environment that celebrates diversity and is not afraid to talk about the hard truths of our past. By not sugarcoating our education and hiring more BIPOC teachers, you will show the students of Penfield that you are bold and don't break under pressure of the minority of voices that do not represent us. I am excited that Penfield has hired its first black assistant superintendent and its first black principal. I hope to see more diverse faces among the teaching staff as well. I'm excited about the changes in our curriculum. Although I will only get to benefit from these changes for a year, I'm happy that my younger sisters will be able to learn an environment that reflects the world better around us. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Mr. Nizinski. Our next speaker is Rich Tyson. Moving on, the next speaker is Anne Marie Scorsoni. My apologies. Please state your name and address.
Can you hear me okay?
No.
Mhm.
Hi, thank you for allowing me to present to the board. My name is Amory Scorsone. I reside at 11 Creekside Circle, Penfield, New York. I have twin daughters. They recently graduated from Indian Landing and shortly will be starting school at Bay Trail. I'm here today to introduce those on the board, the school administrators, and our community to PARA. PARA stands for the Penfield Anti-Racist Alliance. We are a community-focused group that is inclusive, anti-racist, multicultural, and educational in purpose. We invite diversity and inclusion in all forms. We champion anti-racist structures, policies, and practices to maximize the potential of our community. Diversity is crucial for a society and a community to thrive. It allows all members to have a voice, and it is an asset. Our children benefit from diverse schools and learning about various cultural backgrounds. Children learn by example, and diversity is vital for all students to be successful and develop trust. We demand a school district that actively recruits and retains diverse faculty and staff. Our children are watching. I personally would like to say thank you and welcome to our two new principals, Kelly McNair and Leanna Watt. Many of our schools have diversity initiatives, like Indian Landing's Project Lead, which I am a member of. PARA looks forward to working with them and supporting their diversity initiatives as well. PARA is fully committed to shared power and holding the Board of Education and our community accountable. We demand a future without racism and oppression that empowers all members of our community. We want us all to use our creativity to foster equitable, diverse, inclusive environments. We are very encouraged by Mrs. Tasha Potter and the district's decision to pursue a culturally responsive, sustainable educational framework. In closing, I would like to warmly invite all of you to PARA's second annual Black Kids Matter celebration. We plan to hold this annually on the second Saturday of September. This is a celebration of Black children meant to give voice and empowerment. It is geared to kids 12 and under, and we will have story time, drum circles, sign making, and a march. Please join us September 11th from 10 to 12.
Thank you very
at
much.
Harris Wayland Park.
Thank you, Ms. Scorsone. Our next speaker is Jan Piskarowski. Hello, Ms. Piskarowski. Please state your name and address.
My name is Jen Piskarowski, and I live at 642 Smuggler's Cove. I want to thank the board for the opportunity to speak publicly regarding my concerns on layered protections in Penfield schools regarding COVID-19. I wish to start by showing my appreciation for the district's plan to require masking for all students in all schools. Universal masking follows the science when it comes to protection against the airborne COVID-19 virus. Yesterday, the Monroe County Department of Public Health released a report that detailed the amount of cases since August 2nd, broken down by age and gender. 723 cases were reported. 168 of those were reported to be children from 0 to 19. Today, reported numbers from yesterday's totals were 93 new cases, with a 7-day rolling average positivity rate of 4.2%, which is the county's highest since January 28th. We are about to open up full classrooms, social distancing at 3 and 6 feet, and a Delta variant that is raging in our community, and also bringing our positivity rate back up to January levels. We have entire buildings of students ineligible to be vaccinated due to their age, regardless of where their parents stand on this vaccine. This is a problematic thing, and it's concerning as we send our children into buildings where in all likelihood there is going to be COVID-19. The CDC recommends a layered approach to reduce exposures to COVID-19. This approach includes using multiple mitigation strategies, including improvements to building ventilation to reduce the spread of disease and lower risk of exposure. Penfield has maintained that it follows the science. For the most part, I agree with the statement because the district has made clear that mass social distancing, hand washing, cleaning are all being maintained again this year. Where Penfield falls short is the area of ventilation. Science has established that this is an airborne virus, and the lack of emphasis on improved ventilation and indoor air quality needs to be the top priority before school starts. I have been told that all Penfield HVAC systems are unable to use the CDC recommended MERV 13 filters. According to the reopening presentation last week, Penfield buildings will instead be circulating air at the highest level of our operating system. Windows may be open to increase airflow when possible, and that Penfield will be investigating the use of federal funds for air purification options. I'm profoundly concerned that in mid-August, Penfield is just moving past the investigation stage, and the use of HEPA units in schools have not already been purchased, and these units are not in classrooms where students are unmasked, including lunchrooms and classrooms, due to the breaks and/or eating in the rooms. I have been advocating for and have provided extensive proof of the use of ARP ESSER funds to improve or replace HVAC systems to allow for the use of MERV 13 filters and for the purchase of portable HEPA filters. These funds can even pay for the upkeep and electricity bills that are generated.
Thank you, Ms. Piskarowski.
I would like to say thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Frank Howard. Good evening, Mr. Howard. Please state your name and address.
Thank you. Good evening. Frank Howard, 9A Brook Hill Lane, Rochester mailing, but it's Penfield School. Thank you. I want to read the words of the Christian C.S. Lewis. He addressed the more subtle forms of totalitarianism that face us on a daily basis. Of all tyrannies, a tyranny exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive. It may be better to live under robber barons than under omniscient, moral busybodies. The robber baron's cruelty may sometimes sleep, his cupidity may at some point be satiated, but those who torment us for our own good will torment us without end, for they do so with the approval of their own consciousness, and this very kindness stings with intolerable insult. We live in hysterical times. Magical incantations, quasi-religious superstition. Confucius said, when words lose their meaning, people lose their freedom. So it's fundamental that educators should teach students the meaning of words. So the problem I have is what's the problem of equity? What's the meaning of equity? What does it address? What's the meaning of equity? And truthfully, I didn't find it on your website. To the Cafeteria, equity seems to mean disparate outcomes are proof of inherent racism, that racism underlies everything, our legal system, education, banking, housing, even language. Critical race theory and its family contends that the United States is an inherently racist nation and the color of your skin is used to manufacture social, economic, and political inequalities that divide white and non-white Americans. It casts all white people as oppressors and all minorities as victims. So equity implies an underlying belief, a quasi-religious belief, that there's something wrong with our society, especially the majority society. And so in promoting equity, you inadvertently and paradoxically harm the very students you're tasked to educate. A father can say all the right words to his child, but the child can sense that those words are false and takes away the deeper meaning that the father does not have faith in him or her. There is no equity, equal outcomes in the world. And we've seen the results of trying to impose equity in societies as varied as Russia and China. The Bolsheviks said bread and peace, that was their slogan, neither came. Thus cut off from the past, human beings lose their roots and find security only in the herd, and happiness only in the satisfaction of ephemeral needs and desires. For from the standpoint of progress, the past is negligible, if not negative value, bearing the stigma of imperfection and being synonymous with backwardness. What, however, is it that distinguishes human beings from the animal, if not the consciousness of the past? A consciousness which stretches beyond our short lifespan, beyond our little egos, in short, beyond the limitations of the momentary time-conditioned individuality. Same is true of nations and people. Only such nations truly civilized
Thank
or cultured
you, Mr. Howard.
rich are conscious of their past.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. Our next speaker is Cindy Lice. Hello, Ms. Lice, please state your name and address.
That's Cindy Lease, 11 Leonard Crescent. I have a little change of topic. My husband was actually asking me why I'm coming here. He's not sure that the board really wants to hear from dissenting opinions, but I guess I have some hope. And I'm here because it breaks my heart that after a year and a half, I'm still being asked to mask my 5-year-old daughter. The other day, when I told her she might have to wear a mask, she started to cry and said she didn't want to wear it. This isn't her first rodeo either. I'm not a person who's kept my child at home. She's had a mask at certain occasions, and actually preschools asked her to do that recently inside. So it's not like it's unfamiliar to my child. And like I said, a year and a half later, she was upset by me telling her she might have to mask up. So I guess I ask, if we're still masking our children because of the Delta variant, will you allow kids to unmask when this is over? Or will we just wait and see? And will the school look to please all government organizations, the CDC, the State Department of Health, the local Department of Health, the governor? I don't see how that's possible. Everybody has an opinion. I'd love it if our school formed an opinion and acted on that. So I just wanted to say a couple things from the World Health Organization. I'm sure people have heard of that. You know, we look to the CDC in this country. Other countries look to the WHO, the World Health Organization. There are European countries that aren't masking their younger children. Just a couple things from the WHO. Evidence on the benefits and harm of children wearing masks to mitigate transmission of COVID-19 and other coronaviruses is limited. However, some studies have evaluated the effectiveness of mask use in children for influenza and other respiratory viruses. A study of mask wearing during seasonal influenza outbreaks in Japan noted that the use of masks was more effective in higher school grades, such as 4 to 6, than younger grades 1 to 3. One study conducted under laboratory conditions and using non-beta coronaviruses suggested that children between 5 and 11 years old were significantly less protected by mask wearing compared to adults, possibly related to inferior fit of the mask. The benefits of wearing masks in children for COVID-19 should be weighed against potential harm associated with wearing masks, including feasibility and discomfort, as well as social and communication concerns. The WHO has said, given the limited evidence on the use of masks in children for COVID-19 or other respiratory diseases, including limited evidence about transmission for specific ages, the formulation of policies by national authorities should be guided by the following overarching public health and social principles. 1, do no harm. Do no harm. The best interest, health, and well-being of the child should be prioritized. The guidance should not negatively impact development and learning outcomes. My daughter's just 5 years old. I have older kids in the school. I guess I'm a little less concerned about them being able to handle this, but I'm really worried about my 5-year-old. I see her demeanor change when she's told to put on a mask. She gives less eye contact. I know I give less eye contact when I'm wearing a mask. I'm afraid it's affecting her self-confidence when she has to do this. I'm afraid that she's not going to be able to learn to adequately read social and emotional cues of people. Her teachers, her peers in school, she's learning how to act. She's learning how to be social. She's learning how to get along in this world. And I feel that this is limiting her. I'm concerned because she's still learning her letters. She's having difficulties face to face with no mask, the subtleties of these sounds. She's supposed to be reading soon. I have a hard time hearing people sometimes when they're wearing a mask and understanding what they're saying. I think of so many times I've had to ask people to repeat themselves.
Yeah.
So risk versus reward.
Thank you, Ms. Lees.
I believe in parental choice. Again, risk versus reward. We need to look at this.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Dana Maurer. Ms. Maurer, please state your name and address.
Hi, Dana Marr. My address is on file. Will that work, or do I need to give my full address?
Please state your name and address.
Okay. Dana Marr, 1690 Qualtrough Road, Penfield, New York. Or Rochester, New York, Penfield. Thank you. All right. Last month, I attended a Penfield School Board meeting for the first time. I left feeling discouraged and heartbroken with the degree of tension and division I saw in the way attendees responded to one another during the meeting. We all have different experiences, which has impact to our different perspectives and how we advocate for our kids and their respective education. We can spend board meeting after board meeting with nothing achieved, or we can start working together to break down some of the barriers and division and start really hearing what each other has to say and start working together to advocate for what truly in the best interest of our kids. I recently had the opportunity to meet with Tasha Potter and want to thank Ms. Potter for the time she took to hear my concerns, which were specific to some of my children's direct experiences in the school that pertain to diversity as well as division among students and staff. Much of what is recently being applied in school can appear to have the intention of breaking down division, but in many cases is creating division in other ways and having significant and sometimes detrimental impact. As we seek to have more diversity within the school, it's important that we look at the whole picture and not let ourselves get pigeonholed into focusing on only a few specific groups of focus. I noticed that Penfield has its job postings on the Diversity and Ed job recruitment site, which I support, as long as postings are available on all their known job sites, such as Career Builder and Indeed. I did not find any of the more recent Penfield School District postings anywhere but on the Diversity and Ed site, nor was I aware that this site even existed. So prior to recently coming across it. I encourage that in order to truly support diversity and fair employment practices, that the school board and district consider expanding the job postings to be on more than just this one job search site. In my recent conversation with Ms. Potter, I spoke of the tensions in our community, which have trickled into schools related to BLM and Back the Blue, and how it would be great to have students see police as a resource that can be a support rather than a threat like we've seen so much of in the media. I think back a few years ago when my daughter was in high school and we learned that drug dealers were meeting students outside the public library, just outside off the high school property. We have an incredible opportunity here to partner with our police department and work with their DARE program, work to help to build those partnerships, work towards supporting improved drug prevention, improved mental health supports, and building connections through community services, providing kids with opportunities to work side by side with our law officers to bring good into our community and surrounding communities. This serves as an opportunity for our kids to see firsthand some of the situations in our community.
Great.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Maurer. Next speaker is Olga Chernovin. Hello, Ms. Chernovin. Please state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Olga Chernovin. I live at 1696 Qualtrough Road in Penfield. I have 2 students in the school district. And today I want to talk to you about the universal mask requirement for our students. We all want the same thing, for our students and staff to have a safe and welcoming environment. I was an early adopter of the mask back when the experts were saying not to wear them and that the virus is so small that they won't accomplish anything. I sewed my own masks, I gave them to my kids, I made them for my coworkers. But as we learned more about the virus and as the science changed, I think we should follow the science. True peer-reviewed studies show that masks do more harm than good. They trap saliva, sweat, bacteria, and dirt, and our kids will be breathing that all day, every day, for 6 to 8 hours. If you were to check your masks now, they're damp, and that is a breeding ground for bacteria. Masks also impair vision and balance, especially when kids are in gym or playing sports, and can lead to more injuries. I saw this firsthand with my kids. I would send them to school with clean, washed masks. When they came home, the inside was filthy. It took aggressive scrubbing and multiple detergents to get them clean again. My kids come home tired and they complain of headaches. They have little energy to do anything else after spending all day masked at school. My question to you is, how do you expect kids to sit in a mask all day in 90-degree heat? The buildings don't have air conditioning for the most part. Think about yourself. Do you sit in a mask all day at your job? Most adults I know remove their mask the moment they're at their desk, if not before that. You don't want to wear a mask all day. I don't want to wear a mask all day. How is it fair to ask our kids to wear a mask all day? We all instinctively know that this is not healthy. I see people in retail and other places slip the mask below their chin the moment they're able to do that. We all yearn to breathe freely, yet my child got in trouble last year for walking down the hallway alone with her mask below her nose. At a minimum, students should be able to remove their masks while they're seated at their desks. There should be a creative solution. Divide the class in half, every other student. 15 minutes on, 15 minutes off, alternate. The school district also has funds. We should be looking at setting up plexiglass or other forms of germ containment. Making kids wear masks all day is not a good solution, and we need to do better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chernovan. Our next speaker is Catherine Simas. Good evening, Ms. Simmons. Please state your name and address.
My name is Catherine Zemas, and I live at 29 Valley Crescent, Penfield, New York. And I'm thankful to be here. I have been a Penfield resident here for 42 years. I'm a Rochesterian, born and raised here. I lived in Europe for a little bit of my college life. And I am thankful to live in America. This is the greatest nation on earth. My grandparents came here for a better life. My grandfather came here and then sent for his mom and a wife so that he could start a family and have a good life. And they did. They worked hard, really hard. And they provided for us, for my parents, and then we did the same. My husband came from Europe, and he had a desire to come to America and have a good life. And again, America, helped him. He worked hard, he got a job, we married, we had started a family, then there was a wonderful opportunity for him to go to school, and he did that. And then he worked some more and was a fine example to my children. And we raised 2 sons who are productive young men, and I'm grateful. This is the nation that we live in, the United States of America, that was founded on godly principles, mainly loving and respecting God and loving one another, and learning more about Him and living to please Him. That's our nation's history. And that's how we progress to be, I believe, the greatest nation on earth, and the one that so many desire to come to. This United States, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. and I emphasize all. That's what we pledge in our allegiance to America. However, there is a movement to change things. Young children in many schools are asked, how do you feel today? Do you feel like a boy or do you feel a girl? What is this? God created man and woman, boy and girl, in his image. He decides our gender, who we are, because he is our creator. We do not need to encourage our precious children to question that and to create confusion and stress. God wants us to live a productive and peaceful life to please him, which will be pleasing to others too. In school, we learn our ABCs, we learn our better world and its beauty and how it works, and how we can each contribute to make it a better place. I think we need to get back to these basics, to loving God and to loving our neighbors as ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Simmons. And our final speaker is Joy Blake. Good evening, Ms. Blake. Please state your name and address.
Thank you for hearing my thoughts this evening. My name is Joy Blake, and I live at 156 Lafayette Parkway. And I was just wanting to talk about last spring, my daughter participated in the 4th grade anti-racist curriculum. And I'm here tonight to support anti-racist curriculum, encourage diversity within faculty and staff, and advocate for anti-racist training for faculty and staff. I believe it's important for us to explore these topics with our children. Though it can be uncomfortable, encouraging our children to explore the history of racial tension, both local and national, will benefit us all in the long run. When my daughter was learning about this material, her teacher kept in touch with the students, checking in with everybody to address any discomfort they may be experiencing. In so doing, her teacher exemplified the kind of empathy that this curriculum aims to cultivate. My daughter's experience with this curriculum was highly productive. She asked questions, made connections, and broadened her understanding of history and culture. This material lays foundations for a student to make connections with others. This curriculum also prepares individuals for the difficult discussions that may be necessary to bridge us to a better, more cooperative future. This anti-racist curriculum is a connector, not a divider. And it's about community building. To address specific concerns I've heard, my daughter never felt ashamed about being white. Furthermore, she did not come home with a newfound focus on ethnic and racial difference. On the contrary, this curriculum awakened a concern for justice and fairness for all. When we asked her about her experience, she told us she's uncomfortable with and mad about how people can treat others so poorly. I think that confronting these matters is a vital dimension of education and a vital component of citizenship. And I want to commend Penfield Central School District for beginning this important education for our students. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Blake. The board does a number of things to help further their professional development. One of them that a number of us attended this year was the New York State School Board Association Summer Law Conference on July 15th of this year. I know a number of us were there. Would anyone like to say something about your takeaways or what you thought of it?
Go
a lot of information. It was all great. I mean, it was a valuable day. I can't, as a new board member, or newish board member, it was very valuable, and it had a lot of information. We certainly had a lot of questions for Tom afterwards. So, sorry, Tom.
No problem. That's what I'm here for.
Does anybody else want to say anything? No?
Anyone else? So I'll just point out that some of the topics we covered that were presented was helping students transition back to school post, basically post-hybrid, the COVID impact on special education law and the impact on the students and the district's responsibilities, and then new laws and regulations and court rulings that have occurred over the past year. This is one of the ways that the boards stay up to date on what is going on and what is relevant to the district and helps us advocate for better laws. In addition to that, the New York State School Board Association has an annual convention in October of this year. This is an annual convention. We did not have it last year. I think it was virtual last year. This year it's in New York City. Registration is August 16th, and again, hotel rooms generally fill up quickly, so I just want to please let Sharon know before that time so we can get that booked as quickly as possible. There will also be an annual business meeting, which is where the New York State School Board Association votes and determines what resolutions will be approved, which form the basis for advocacy, and not only with the district and the Monroe County, but the New York State School Board Association is an advocate for all districts, all schools and families throughout the state. So this is where we tell them what is important to us to advocate for new laws or to prevent undesirable laws with the New York State Legislature. And then we have, let's see, I'll just, committee assignments. I've gotten one second here. There we go. So I've heard from everybody on committee assignments, and we've got these posted. If there's any changes or that you'd like to make, please let me know. Again, this does include assignments with the Monroe County School Board Association, where we work in partnership with the districts throughout the county for common interests. The New York State School Board Association, where we have a representative work with the state at the state level to make sure our interests are addressed. And then we have within the school board, we have our own committees for audit, DEI, facility, health and safety, sustainability, as well as policy. And then in addition to that, we provide liaisons to as many of the PTA, PAB, PTO, and PTSA and booster meetings as we're able to attend. So again, thank you for signing up for those. I know that's a lot of extra time, and it is definitely well worthwhile. So I just want to say that in a few weeks we will be starting a new school year that is again under the shadow of the COVID-19 pandemic. This year we have the benefit of an additional year of understanding of the COVID virus and a year of experience using virtual and hybrid educational formats. We are also unencumbered by the guidance from the New York State School Board, New York State Department of Health that was at times challenging and subject to change. Now, as Dr. Putnam mentioned, the State Education Department may weigh in on and provide additional guidance, but at this point in time, we don't have that. This experience has reinforced our belief that students perform best when in school 5 days a week. The Board of Education believes that our district will keep the safety of the students and staff at the forefront by utilizing the CDC recommendations and working with our County Department of Health. Dr. Putnam has shared the work that has been done to include all stakeholder input in the decision-making process, from the reopening committee to the Conversation on Education webinar last Thursday. Our reopening plan represents the best solution for a successful and safe school year for our students. Penfield will continue to evaluate the evolving COVID-19 pandemic CDC recommendations and any new state guidances and make adjustments where necessary. With your help and support, we will have a successful school year for our students. So with that, I'd like to ask, is there any new business? All right. Then if I could have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting at 7:54.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? All right, meeting adjourned.